Dr. Lieberman. Oh, that's wrong. My bad. Marilyn Cochran Smith talked a lot about the first year. Yell and scream and yell and scream. Okay. She talks about not only being a first-year teacher and feeling like, oh my gosh, I finally graduated. That feeling of, but I still have so much to learn. She talked about, does it ever end? Like, do we ever stop learning as teachers? Should we ever stop learning as teachers? And how to, she did an interesting thing where she had an example of one student teacher who crashed and burned her first year, and another student teacher whose demographics were the same basic education, same everything, but who instead of being isolated from her peers, reached out to her peers in the school. For instance, the one who crashed and burned was in a portable, and this portable had like fish tank windows, and she was really sick of being stared at all the time as a teacher. So she put up things over the windows so nobody could see in at all. But she couldn't see out either. She didn't know what was going on in the school. And because she was in this portable, isolated from everybody, she didn't feel that she could reach out. She ate all of her lunches in the portable. She didn't really have any interaction with her peers at all. And so by the end of the first year, of course, you're feeling isolated and neglected and sad and scared. And by that point, what's the point of reaching out to anybody, because they all think you're the stranger in the portable. So she talked about, even if you are physically isolated from your peers, reaching out other ways and asking questions and having high expectations, not just for our students, because we're always told to have high expectations for our students, but really nobody ever tells us to have high expectations for ourselves. They tell us you need to stick to this commandment and this commandment and this commandment, and this is how you become a good teacher, but not, it's like a minimal requirement, and we aren't told to go beyond that. And then she also talked about developing the professional learning communities, making ties with your grade level peers, even if you're not actively collaborating. Mentoring new teachers once you develop the ability, once you feel secure enough in your own position to mentor new teachers or reach out to new teachers. And opening your classroom to researchers and parents and, other teachers, other classes, so that they can come in and help teach your students, so that it all feels tied together. So. And then read your KDP thingies. This is the fall 2011 KDP record. It's all in here. Okay.
Bye.
Thank you.
Okay. So how many of you are familiar with Tableau, or what it is? I think I've talked to you a little bit about it. Okay. Basically, what Tableau is that it helps kids better absorb and comprehend what they're reading in class by way of acting out a scene from what they've been reading in class. But they don't have to memorize lines. That's the catch. So they would do something like what we did in the conference that I attended, is that we pretended to act out a scene from The Three Little Pigs. And, the students can be anything they want in the scene. They just kind of have to assign roles really quickly and get it set up as soon as they can. So, one lady decided to be half of the house, there was the other half, and there was a gal inside sitting like this, like she was really confident, and I was posed as the big bad wolf trying to blow the house down. And what we did is that we had the rest of the audience guess, like what are we supposed to be? And what you can do with the students who aren't actively participating in Tableau is that you ask them to come up and tap one of the characters and if one of the characters says something, they can make an inference. Like if they were to tap one of the ladies who was pretending to be a house, she could go, you know, like, because houses really don't talk that much. But one of the ladies came up and she tapped me, and I was like, why won't this house blow down? It was a brick house. Now, what do you guys think would be a good fairy tale for you three to enact? You need to actively participate in this.
I don't know. I can't think of any fairy tales.
Snow White, but I can't remember how she was.
A kiss. A kiss.
No.
We could do Goldilocks.
There you go. Okay.
Gotta go old school.
Now I want you three to go over in the corner and assign roles. And pick a scene.
We're doing it like she did. And stand still.
If you need me to be part of the house, I can. You almost ready?
Do we have to act out or have like a still scene? Like
It's a still scene.
okay.
Oh,
So,
okay.
so
Yeah.
one scene like actually, and then the other two can be like the bed. Something like that. Okay.
Sounds like you're ready.
Who wants to lead? I'll lead. Okay. We're ready.
Come on up.
Lay right
Okay.
down on the chairs.
Or yeah, can we go to it back
Yeah,
here?
sure.
We cut it out. You're right. Dang
Still
it.
scene. It's okay. It's okay.
They want to like act it
You
out
need to
a
be
lot.
creative.
Props.
Yeah. Okay.
Use like a cup of cord.
Wait. And 1, 2, 3. Okay. Now, Beth, I want you to go up and tap one of them.
What is all this orange gone?
So, which character do you think that Rachel is pretending to be?
She's wearing pink, so she's Mom Bear.
Mom Bear? Mom Bear? Okay. Tap 3.
Why is my chair broken?
Baby Bear! Alright. And I assume that the sleeping girl is Goldilocks. Alright, very good, guys.
I really wanted to act it out. That's
I know.
hard.
Yeah, that was
It's
good.
more
That's
difficult
struggling
than
with
you
that.
think.
Great job, teamwork.
It's more difficult than you think, but the good thing is that kids won't have to stutter or stumble over lines, because I know that when we were asked to act out Romeo and Juliet in my 9th grade class, I hated that. Because like we had to be up there with the script, and it didn't feel natural. And I know that if we didn't have the script, we'd be tripping all over Shakespeare. All right, your turn, Beth.
Okay, my turn. So, one of the really big ones that I attended, one of the workshops, as you can tell from the list on the USB, there were like 100 workshops. So there was no way we could possibly attend them all. But one of my favorite was the increasing reading comprehension for children with autism. And one of the reasons that children with autism have a difficult time with reading comprehension is not necessarily decoding. The problem is not with knowing what sounds go with the words and putting the words together. It's with knowing the meanings and being able to generalize those meanings. As I was sharing with her, a study that just came out this month in the Journal of the American Medical Society, they found that children with autism have as many as 67% more neurons in their frontal cortex. So the problem is there's too much going on at any one time. It causes a lot of interference to have that many neurons that tightly packed. So with children with autism, they talk a lot about useful strategies. This thing is chock full. It's on your USB drive. And for those of you who are watching, you can request this from me, Puckett, Elizabeth Puckett at u.boisestate.edu. One thing that they talked about is predicting, connecting the story, looking at the pictures in the story, looking at the front cover of the story, and talking about what could possibly happen in that story so that you're activating prior knowledge, connecting text to self, text to text, and text to world, so that children are making those generalized connections. The same with visualizing. Children with autism do tend to be very visual. They can be overstimulated, but they're very visual. So it's good to go through the story as you're talking to them. And one thing that they did is they had clear, transparent overlays, and they laid them over the story. And for every question that they had, if it was a literal comprehension question, like a who, what, when, where, why, or who, what, when, and where, they would take a mud-colored marker on the transparency and mark on the transparency in the story where they got the information to answer that question. If it was an inference question, they would mark with a different color an area of the story that they put the information together from. And that way they're not necessarily having to put together a full, I found this information here and this is why I think it is, because with children, especially with severe autism, you're not going to get full sentences from them. And you may not know where they're getting the information from, even if they're answering the questions correctly. But if they can demonstrate that knowledge in a visual way, it makes things a lot easier for them. Okay? Identifying the big ideas in a story was a useful strategy, and summarizing a story, being able to go back. So for instance, I'm working with a child with autism right now. We're reading Charlotte's Web. And at the end of every chapter, I have a little reading log, and I say, so what happened in the story today? And he'll say, Charlotte wrote terrific. And then I take that and work with him on writing why Charlotte wrote terrific. So Charlotte wrote terrific because, and then he has to come up with the second half of that. And from that, we're building his ability to connect ideas in the story. And then on vocabulary, this is just another useful thing. Vocabulary in the handout, they talked about activating prior knowledge, but making that knowledge specific to the context. So they have these little vocabulary books. It's a full vocabulary book. And they have a generalized vocabulary book, which is things like wary, a picture from the internet, and just a general dictionary definition, sometimes simplified, depending on how deep the autism is. And then using that in a sentence. And then they also had a story-specific one where they used wary in the context of the story. So that prior knowledge is activated within the context of the story, and it's able to be generalized back out again. Am I making any sense? Mm-hmm. Okay. So that's kind of what I did with the Laura.